From his earliest days, Mattel's heart seemed to beat in rhythm with a heavenly drum. While other boys chased balls and climbed trees, Mattel found his greatest joy in quiet moments with God. He would sit with his Bible, its pages worn and soft, tracing the words of ancient promises with his small finger. His prayers were not grand or rehearsed. They were simple conversations, whispered like secrets between the best of friends. He spoke to God about everything: the color of the sky, the taste of his breakfast, the kindness of his mother. And in those quiet moments, he felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling of being known and deeply loved by his Creator. He possessed gifts that seemed to flow directly from this divine connection. When he spoke, his words carried a gentle wisdom that was far beyond his years, calming troubled hearts and bringing smiles to worried faces. When he sang hymns, his voice soared with a pure, simple praise that made others feel closer to heaven. People would often remark on his special spirit, saying he had an old soul. Matlow didn't think much of it then. He was just doing what felt natural, sharing the goodness that filled his own heart. His life was a song of worship, and he was content to be a simple instrument in God's great orchestra. This pure and simple faith was the foundation of his world. He saw God's handiwork everywhere he looked. In the intricate design of a flower petal, in the steady love of his family, and in the comfort of a shared meal. His days were uncomplicated, filled with the simple pleasures of a life devoted to God. He didn't seek attention or praise. His reward was the feeling of God's presence, a constant and reassuring companion. His spirit was light, unburdened by the worries that so often weigh down the world. He was a boy who knew he was special, not because of what he could do, but because of who loved him. His family cherished his gentle nature and his unwavering devotion. They saw the light in his eyes and knew it was a reflection of something holy. His mother would often find him in his room, not playing with toys, but kneeling in prayer, his small hands clasped together. His father would listen with pride as Mattel shared stories from the Bible, explaining their meaning with a clarity that was truly remarkable. To them, Mattel was a daily reminder of God's grace, a living testament to the power of a simple, trusting faith. His childhood was a beautiful tapestry, woven with threads of love, worship, and an unshakable connection to the divine. As Mattel grew from a boy into a young man, a subtle change began to take place. He started to notice his own reflection in a new way. He saw the strong line of his jaw, the clear depth of his eyes, and the easy way he smiled. Strangers would comment on his handsome features, and friends would praise his natural charm. The gifts that once flowed from him so effortlessly, his wisdom, his voice, his kindness, now earned him admiration and applause. The attention felt good, like a warm and inviting light. Slowly, almost without him realizing it, the focus of his heart began to shift from the giver of the gifts to the gifts themselves. The simple joy he once found in quiet worship began to be replaced by the thrill of public performance. He still sang the hymns, but now he listened for the loudness of the applause that followed. He still shared his wisdom, but now he watched to see how many people were impressed by his words. The mirror became a more frequent companion than his Bible. He would spend long moments studying his appearance, adjusting his hair, and practicing the smile that seemed to win people over. The quiet, humble servant was slowly being overshadowed by a confident, polished performer who loved the spotlight. This growing pride became a small, secret treasure that he polished in his heart. He started to believe that the admiration he received was something he had earned, something he deserved. He was handsome. He was gifted. He was special because of who he was, not because of who loved him. This thought was like a tiny seed of a weed planted in the fertile soil of his heart. And it began to grow, its roots tangling around the pure faith that had once been so strong. The warmth of God's love began to feel distant, replaced by the fleeting heat of human praise. His family noticed the change, though they couldn't quite name it. The light in his eyes seemed different now. It had a harder, more self-assured glint. The gentleness in his voice was sometimes edged with an air of superiority. He spoke less of God's grace and more of his own accomplishments. The simple conversations with his Creator became less frequent, crowded out by the noise of his own growing ego. The boy who walked humbly with God was learning to strut proudly before men, and he was losing his way with every confident step. It was Ali. She was kind and genuine, with a quiet faith that reminded him of his own younger self. She wasn't impressed by his polished exterior or his crowd-pleasing charm. Instead, she seemed to look right through them, searching for the boy he used to be. Her gentle spirit and simple devotion should have been a comfort to him, a reminder of the path he had left behind. But in his pride, Matthew saw her goodness not as an inspiration but as a threat. Her light made him uncomfortably aware of the shadows growing in his own soul, his pride twisted into a bitter jealousy. He couldn't stand that she possessed a purity he was losing. He began to treat her unkindly, using his clever words not to uplift, but to belittle. He would make subtle jokes at her expense or dismiss her simple faith as naive. He wanted to diminish her light so that his own would seem brighter in comparison. Every kind word she spoke felt like a judgment on him. Every act of selfless service she performed felt like a silent rebuke. He was competing with her, but the rivalry was entirely within his own heart, a battle between his tarnished pride and the memory of his own lost innocence. His actions became increasingly cruel. He would ignore her in front of others, making her feel small and invisible. He would challenge her beliefs, trying to make her doubt the very foundation that made her so strong. He wanted to see a crack in her gentle armor, to prove that her goodness was not as real as it seemed. It was a desperate and ugly attempt to validate his own choices by tearing down someone who represented everything he was turning his back on. He was hurting her to soothe the ache in his own spirit. But the more he lashed out, the more empty and conflicted he felt inside. God saw the battle raging within Mattel's heart. He saw the beautiful gift of a loving spirit being corrupted by the poison of pride. He saw the pain Mattel was inflicting on Callie and ultimately on himself. The Lord loved Mattel too much to let him continue down this destructive path. He knew that a lesson was needed, not a punishment, but a powerful, unforgettable encounter that would force Mattel to confront the person he was becoming. A divine intervention was coming, a wrestling match for Mattel's very soul, designed to break his pride so that his heart could be made whole again. One night, as Mattel walked alone under a sky full of stars, a profound sense of turmoil washed over him. He felt lost and utterly alone. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows. The being was powerful and radiant, clearly an angel of the Lord. But as Mattel looked closer, a chilling recognition dawned on him. The angel looked exactly like him. It was his own face, but different. The eyes held a deep peace he had lost. The expression was one of compassionate strength, not arrogant pride. It was a perfect, untarnished version of himself, the man he was created to be. Without a word, they began to wrestle. The struggle was fierce and desperate. It was a physical manifestation of the war that had been raging inside him for so long. Every move Mattel made out of pride, the angel countered with a move of humility. Every time Mattel tried to overpower the angel with his own strength, the angel met him with a quiet, unyielding grace. It was a battle between his arrogant self and his better self, between the man he had become and the man God intended him to be. He was fighting against his own selfishness, his own jealousy, his own tarnished reflection, and he was losing. As dawn approached, Mattel, exhausted and broken, knew he could not win by his own power. The angel reached out and touched his hip, and a sharp, searing pain shot through him. In that moment of weakness, Mattel finally surrendered. He clung to the angel, no longer fighting but pleading. He was wrestling not for victory but for a blessing. In that moment of surrender, the battle was over. The good side, the God-given side, had won. The angel, his own true self, had prevailed. The pride that had been his armor was shattered, leaving him vulnerable but finally free. Mattel walked away from that encounter a changed man. The rivalry with Callie vanished, replaced by a deep sense of shame for his cruelty. He left her in peace, knowing he needed to heal himself before he could be a friend to anyone. He returned to his family, to his Bible, and to his quiet conversations with God. His pride was gone, replaced by a profound humility. He now walked with a noticeable limp, a permanent physical reminder of his spiritual battle. It was a mark of his weakness, but also a symbol of his newfound strength. The strength that comes not from oneself, but from surrendering to the loving hand of God.